Well, one of the things that they will actually develop a declaration of principles, and W.B. Du Bois would be charged with the writing up of those principles. They would discuss it when they met near the Niagara Falls, there across the border in Canada, from Buffalo and New York. They would meet there, have a wonderful discussion on a wide range of issues. Another very prominent issue was the issue of lynching, the issue of African Americans who might be accused of a crime, a terrible crime, murder, rape, what have you. But unlike other Americans, they would not be afforded due process of law. They would not be brought before courts, charged, being able to confront the evidence presented against them, being able to challenge testimonies openly in court, being judged by a jury of their peers. This was being denied blacks routinely. It was actually being denied in many instances all over the country, but especially African Americans are going to find themselves falling to what's called lynch law or mob rule. Basically, someone makes the accusation, a posse, a group will go out, find the black person or black persons, take them to the center of town, a crowd, a mob will assemble, or they might lock them up for a few days and put the word out, we're going to have a lynching on such and such a date, and then from miles around people will come in to watch this spectacle of hanging, of setting on fire, on really terrible, terrible kinds of things to people who had only been accused. There was no due process. There's no legal procedure to determine their guilt.
Right to a fair trial.
No fair trial. And so these basic constitutional provisions that other Americans routinely come to expect were being denied African Americans on the order of almost one a day, of hundreds, of thousands. The numbers begin to mount going into the 20th century, from the late 1800s now into the early 1900s, and people are feeling powerless. You go to local governments, there's no response to the lynching. Oh, that's how we do things. You go to state governments and say, hey, can we have some legislation that stops this? No interest in the state governments. So finally the appeal is made to the federal government. Step in, do something. This is a constitutional right. This is a right of all American citizens. Step in and do something. And so the trying to organize resistance to that is a cardinal point in this Declaration of Principles. Also the vote. The view that Du Bois and John Hope and others in this Niagara movement will be entirely convinced of is that a people without vote in a country like the United States are a people without power, are a people without recognition, are a people without status in the larger society. Because politicians, our government officials, who are they going to respond to? Are they going to respond to someone who doesn't vote, who cannot vote for them, who has no ability to affect their election? Or are they going to respond to the people who cast votes for them? Obviously, it's the latter. Obviously, it's the person who can put them in office or take them out of office. So African Americans having no vote means you have no standing within the political framework of this society. So look at the other issue I just mentioned of lynching. If you have no vote, you have no way in this society legally within the organized process of government to register your position, to take a politician out who isn't listening to you, who isn't responding to your issues. You can take him or her out if you have the vote, but if you don't, you have no voice. You have no a relationship to the political system. And so again, this becomes part of the Declaration of Principle.